Hi, and welcome to another Lombardi Live. I often say you can learn a lot by listening to what great players have to say on Drum Channel. Gary Wallis is my guest today, and he's a great example of what many of the legendary drummers on Drum Channel have said. You will learn from his real-life experiences what he learned that affected him and his career. He's best known for the years he played percussion with Pink Floyd, but he also has a great, amazing career way beyond that. By the way, you're also going to want to listen to the interview Terry Bozzio has on Drum Channel, where he interviewed Gary's bandmate, the legendary Nick Mason, a very rare interview that's on Drum Channel now. How did Gary get the percussion gig with Pink Floyd? Let's find out right now. Hello and welcome to Drum Channel. We have a very special guest today. Special in many ways, not only being a great drummer and a producer and a director, wearing many hats, but also a guy that has a schedule that is just like unbelievable. So we grabbed an afternoon as you're flying in and out of town. Gary Wallis, thank you for joining us so much today.
Good afternoon.
Let's kind of work backwards.
What's
What's happening with your life at the moment here, being in LA and then taking off again?
Well, I'm just in today to look at a new drum kit, a custom kit you're making for me of concert tom-toms, which is quite a rare thing in the DW world. And I'm really quite excited about it.
It all comes around. That's okay.
Everything comes around, right? I'm just starting a world tour. A German act called Schiller. It's quite an interesting kind of electronic rock act. It's a big cross between real kind of hands-on rock drums and extreme electronics, kind of like dub hop. Like cross between dubstep and trip hop. It's really very interesting. So you guys are going to kind of make me a concert tom-tom kit with all matching pads, so I can really enter into this world.
I remember though, back in the day, electronics would have been in the early 80s. You were into electronics more than most people, right?
I was pretty much the first guy there.
Okay.
And they were kind of, the electronic thing went away for a while.
Sure.
But now it's emerged again, and it's really, I'm not sure, I don't know about in America, but in Europe it's really taking hold now, because the technology has really moved to a place where you can pretty much make and create anything you can think of now, where the technology is actually parallel with your thinking. So it's a very interesting time for electronic drums.
Brings up an interesting subject, because we're so much into education on Drum Channel and how young musicians are going to go out and have a career when they get out of college. And something they should think about is getting their chops together on knowing how electronic drums work and how you can integrate them into a drum set.
Well, I think the most important thing about the question electronic drums raise is, the sounds that you can make, and why does it make those sounds? Why do you have those sounds in a particular record? Because let's face it, when you're recording, it's a blank canvas, and it's all about how you colour in that canvas. And as we all know, the drum sound is the epicenter of making a record, the foundation, how it's all going to feel, what type of push it has, what type of lull it has, And having electronic drums, you can then actually get into that studio thing where you actually change the bedrock of what a song sounds like. So it's not just the same kick and snare and toms and however the engineer wants to interpret that for you, but you're actually custom making sounds to fit to the song as required. So it's got the right weight to it and the right amount of impetus to it, So I think as a student actually walking forward in your career, I think it's fundamental that you get an electronic portfolio together, as you would with any kind of workstation, kind of Pro Tools, Logic, Ableton, whatever. They're all amazing platforms, so everyone gets into that. But I think you should transfer that type of skill to e-drumming as well, because let's face it, so much music is being made by electronically, and having that in your stick bag, as it were, can only bring you more work. And the more you understand it, the better you get, the more they employ you. And that's really a big, I think it's as important as knowing how to tune a drum kit, what cymbals to pick. It's a new platform, and it's a palette and it's not going anywhere. It's only going to get bigger.
It's evolving as...
And I think the more you know about it, the better you can tailor that, you give more to whoever you work with. And And especially the E thing as well, which I love what the E kit does to education, is that lovely thing where you can go home and you can have a kit there and you can work it out. You can work out the geography of how you play, how it all goes together without pissing everyone in the world off. You know, like parents, whatever, loved ones, but a lovely thing that you can actually sit there, put some cans on, and you can actually really work out the mechanics of a kit, which is, we all know, is so fundamental and hard to get right, and that can really be a failing point when you go out and actually play on a date, you know, whether it be studio or live. You know, that's a real. So I love that side of the E drumming, that it actually, you can, it's a place to learn quietly, which is a great transferable skill as soon as you put it on a real kit, you know.
Remember, if you want to play drums out there, you bring up a very good point. The first thing you're going to hear is, they're loud. No, they're not loud at all, Mom. I've got an E kit. It's quieter than the violin player next door that's driving us nuts.
Yeah, if you play a real kit, I'm not sure she's going to be quite as nice as you just phrased it.
Well, you have to wait till they go out. We drummers know what happens there, right? You know,
yeah, but then you've got the neighbours to beat. Then that's a whole new.
Well, we have another tip for that. We got, I think, from Chad Smith, like, just the way to get around that, when the police come over, don't open the door. He said, that's what I did. There was no...
He makes a good point.
Kept on going. Putting your producer hat on, as you're talking about. In your career, well, let's go back to looking at, where did you get involved in playing percussion relative to the drum set, and how did you get steered into want to be one of the early players who really was doing both?
Yeah, I was a kid, you know, kind of poor kid growing up. And I got kind of a set of bongos, and then inherited some congas, just for lack of money in my family, and I wanted to play. So it's kind of, okay, I've got these, better learn how to play them. So I wanted to kind of play kit, but only having that. So I just kind of studied hand percussion, and that became my first instrument. Really, it was my first love. Really, bongos and congas were my first love. And then kind of getting old enough to, you know, parents getting some money together, get you a little kit. And by the time I'm about 8, 9 years old, it was a duality. It was like, oh, I'll hit those ones, or I'll hit those ones. And as a kid, it didn't seem to make any difference. You just, you know, you have that real lovely naivety. It's just, oh, I play these, but you work out how to make them sound good. So I'll just play these ones, and I'll play that. I'll go over here and play these, okay, whatever. And yeah, it was a real natural, you know, like when you're a kid and you kind of grew up with parents from different countries, so you just grew up speaking both languages, and you don't really know who you are. It just happens, and you get to kind of a young adult, you go, oh great, I can play both of them. I didn't know they were different. I didn't even essentially know they were a different discipline at the beginning. It was just stuff to hit. And
that's going to double the opportunities you have for gigs. Like sometimes you might, well, not only sometimes, the penultimate gig as a percussionist, which you had for so many years, with Pink Floyd. That was like,
little Pink Floyd chaps. Yeah, that was a good gig. But that was really interesting, because all of the things that I'd really kind of, because as you said, I really loved the electronic thing. I was always fascinated that I could make something that was out of the box. It wasn't of this world, it was of another world, and that was always intriguing to me. And that was a really interesting opportunity, because no one had really played electronic drums before, and that was a massive world stage. And to be able to bring all that electronic stuff there, and capture that, and then have all the Latin stuff that was already in my bag, you know, conga, timbales, the whole thing, and have a drum kit as well. It's like, damn, I got the best of all possible worlds here. And they were really kind, because they were very much about, look, kid, you got that whole thing going on, explore it. You know, so that was a really nice, it was a great collision of all the things. And as you say, I was very young, and it was quite young in the industry to have those things together. It didn't really happen, it not really happened actually probably before then. So it was really nice to stick all those things together. And that lovely thing is not about kind of playing the drums or being clever or fast or anything, just having an amazing tonal palette. Just different sounds for different things, you know, rather than...
Well, that's what that band was. I mean, it was as much or more of a show than it was a band when you actually went to see them play. Not sure about the timing, but I'll never forget. It was either taking a drum set to Nik, or we were going to do a photo shoot, and and they gave me where they were going to be. It was at an airport, in an airplane hangar out in Santa Barbara at a naval base. And so I just figured you needed a large hangar, I guess, to do the pre-show production. Yeah, I don't know if you remember this.
Yeah, because Nick and I came here to see you and John, and we had those grey bird's eye kits made.
This would have been late 80s, maybe.
It would have been 91.
91, okay, right in that area.
No,
been,
I'm lying, 93.
Okay, sounds
93,
right.
93, and we had those grey maple kits made. And you had a very early track system. You were experimenting with a rack system. Yeah. It was great, that rack.
Yeah,
it never moved. It was heavy like hell. It took 6 people to set it up. But it was great. It was like once it locked in, down, it's staying there. It's not going anywhere. But it was heavy. Yeah, and we rehearsed at Hangar Out.
Oh, and in
Palm Springs?
So yeah, way out that way, San Bernardino, Palm Springs area. So you go out there and you have to get at the gate, you've got to have your credentials and everything, and like, well, do you know where they're at? And the guard there pointed to me, he said, just drive down the runway. So I'm driving down a runway where all of these Air Force planes are, and it's this huge hangar. And there's these, I'm used to tours where, yes, they'll have like 12 tour buses or 15, there's just like a huge amount of tour buses to move all this. So I drive up and there's 2 huge planes there. And it's like, we go into this huge airplane hangar, and the stage is set up at the back of it. And you were about to go to Europe. I think you needed to load everything into those 2 humongous planes.
They were 2 Antonovs. I remember they were the Russian, they're the biggest freight planes.
Biggest freight planes I've ever seen.
Like we had them fly from Moscow.
For a band to be traveling around in.
Yeah, because I remember we had to get to Europe pretty quick, and that was the only thing we could get it on and get it up and over.
Now, one of them was just for his percussion rig, by the way.
Come on.
But that was an outstanding, show. How did the opportunity come up for you to get into the band?
Well, I'd been in London playing around a lot of great acts and been touring a lot. Been very successful up to that point, and I'd just finished a guy called Nik Kershaw who'd had several number ones, and I was out on the power station with Robert Palmer doing that.
Yeah, that's
great. We just finished Live Aid back in the day, and I'd flown back to England, and we were playing a charity show for it's called the Secret Policeman's Ball. Lots of different artists, comedians, raising money for prisoners of conscience. And we were doing the sound check, and this kind of dude turned up with a beard and said, "Hey man, how you doing?" I'm like, "All right, how you going?" He said, "These things are tough." I said, "Yeah, tough, but they're a great charity, a good cause." He said, "Yeah." He said, "Do you want to come have a drink in my dressing room?" I said, "Yeah, sure. Which number are you in?" He said, I said, "Who are you playing with?" He said, "I'm playing with Peter Gabriel and Kate Bush." I went, "Great, I'll come and say hello in a minute." It was Dave Gilmour. I didn't know him from Adam. So I went to the dressing room and said hello to Dave, and I had Kate, and I knew Peter a bit anyway. And we had a glass of wine, had a chat, look, great show, see you up there, see you at the after show type thing. Great, everyone has a great show, big success. And the next day I get a call and it's like, "Gary, it's David." "Oh, hello man." He said, "We met yesterday." I said, "Yeah, I know, you're a big fella with a beard." And I said, "Yeah." He said, "I've got this band and I'm going to reform. How do you feel about being in it?" So I said, "Who are you then?" I said, "Well, Pink Floyd." I kind of heard of you a bit. And he said, "Well, yeah, well, look, you in?" I said, "Yeah, I'm in." He said, "Great. See you at the studio tomorrow. I'll give you the songs, meet the rest of the guys, turn up at the studio the next day. Hi guys, English, also we'll have a cup of tea, of course. Place with a new record." It's like, great vibe, right. "Here's your contract, here's your ticket, see you in Canada tomorrow."
That's it.
Done.
You're off.
That's all she wrote.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was sorry, it was a long-winded story.
Well, no, I think the long-winded part of that story, which is important for, the aspiring drummers out there, is all the preparation it took to get to that point where you got that gig.
Oh, yeah.
All the years of practice and dedication.
Well, it's that thing, you have got to, get them, put them in the back of the car, drive them up and down the freeway till you hurt. There's no free lunches. You got, and before that, it was 10 years of hurting but staying the distance and keeping your head down and keep pushing no matter what. Because as we all know, as young players, let's face it, as a player of any age, to change your life is one phone call away, and that's it. And you can be in any situation, any given time. It can be a bar, it can be a bar mitzvah, a wedding. You can be standing backstage, and you connect with the right people, you play the right thing, and someone goes, not today, but I got this guy's number. And then something else comes up and they say, remember that guy? And your life changes. So I think it's a very big thing, is never to get downhearted about it, because it is about the connections and relationships that you make, and it is only one phone call away. And you never know how much good you're doing in the situation that you're in. That's for other people to know. So that's that thing of always keeping your head down, keeping your game clean, and as best as you can do it. Because there's so many people watching and so many opportunities waiting for you. That was a big lesson I found anyway. The greatest things happen out of the funniest places.
You never know, huh?
You never know.
I hear those stories time and time again here, which is really interesting, of how this drummer got the gig, how that one. I just happened to be a friend of a friend of a friend that knew Chad Smith, knew they were auditioning for a band. Somebody knew that Bruce Springsteen was looking for a drummer, and I just happened to run into the guy, so I was walking down the street, and I thought, well, I'll go on an audition anyway. And
I think a lot of those big success stories are all very odd collisions.
Yeah. Yeah. But again, it's the preparation that all these people have through their life experiences that kind of gets you there.
Yeah, I think the truth is, like anything in life, you get that lucky break or that collision, whatever you want to call it. But then when that happens, you've got to come with everything in your stick bag. And you have to have done the 10 years of prep before that and done all that stuff. So when someone says, well, there you go, kid, you're good, then you got to...
Back in the early days, what was your learning experience? Private instruction, or did you were you mostly self-taught?
Self-taught for obviously a lot of it, but then I got given a grant by I had a music teacher who was a lovely man in my high school, and he looked, he said, like, you can play.
This is growing up where?
In London, in southeast London, in the 70s, a long time ago. But this beautiful music teacher called Ian Lawrence, he took me to the Royal Academy of Music, got me an audition, and got me a government sponsorship. So I got my formal training at the Royal Academy.
Wow.
In the London, what would have been the junior version of the London Symphony Orchestra. So very, very disciplined.
I never knew that. That's phenomenal.
Completely, being a young kind of out of control kid, 14 years old, being put into this really, really controlled and graduated world, it's like, and there are expectations and there are rules, and you have to get to the standard, or you're out, You're suddenly in with the big boys. It's like, read this. It's like, oh, okay. So it was those years that was all real formal for me. It's a great discipline, but I haven't used too much of the technique side of it, of timps or vibes or whatever, but the discipline, as it were, that was the greatest lesson. Actually, having the focus to be disciplined and stay focused at all times from point A to point B. That was the great lesson that formal training gave me.
That's the importance we talk about a lot here, for students to get private instruction. You're going to see a teacher, a mentor every week. So you have to be disciplined because you have these thresholds of where you need to get.
Well, you've been set a task. You've got to go home and work on it. Otherwise, it's all superfluous. It's pointless.
Yeah,
you've got to go home and adapt to the task in hand, get it better, improve, so then you can actually cross the next hurdle. Otherwise,
that's our goal here on Drum Channel.
If you're not looking forward, then what are you doing?
Yeah, exactly right. Our goal here is to allow private instructors to have an additional online resource, so that you'll get your lesson, but at the same time, you can have an online version of that lesson just so you can't say, oh, I forgot what I was supposed to do.
It's lovely, yeah. It's
a combination of those two.
Yeah, you can't come with the age-old line. Yes, sorry, sir, the dog ate my homework.
Yeah, exactly right.
That one's off the board.
Should he eat your computer? You would have another problem possibly.
Exactly, but that's nice because you like any of us take a lesson, you're never going to remember all of it. So having a refresher, as it were.
Yeah. And
keep it, that's great.
And we take advantage of having people who are known for certain genres that are really, you can get your general Latin percussion chops, but we have a lot of lessons from Alex Acuna, from people who, one of the early drummers like yourself, who was able to combine drum set and percussion at the same
Alex,
time.
He's a monster.
Monster, right?
Monster.
So that's where you can almost get upper level university courses on the site while you're still learning
get
how to
Alex
play.
Acuna to really. It ain't going to get any better than that.
No, exactly right.
You're going to the source.
Right.
You're at the source.
And you'll have a little bit to practice. It's not a matter of just looking at them like you're on YouTube looking at a video.
That's amazing though. Going to the source, having a master give you that lesson. Yeah. That's really something.
Well, that's one of the mantras that I want to do. One of our missions with Drum Channel is to memorialize a lot of these guys. New Orleans drumming. We have 4 hours of Zigaboo Modaliste talking about his experience and where it came from and who he learned from, which is really interesting.
I'd be so interested to see that. Where Zigaboo came from, because he's a drummer amongst drummers, that man.
Yeah.
He's coming from it completely from over here. It's just magnificent.
And was a teenager when he started playing those. He was much younger than the rest of the guys in the band.
In the meters. Right?
In the meters, when they heard him play, yeah. And he told an interesting story. We have a DVD. I'll give you a copy of it. It's a streaming download on the site too that people can get. But I thought it was, in all the filming, you get these aha moments sometimes when somebody says something. And he said, when we went into the studio, our label was looking at having a similar type horn band to Booker T and the MGs, which this other label had, and they were doing good, which was more of a Chicago funk type of a backbeat. And he said, I knew they wanted something like that, but I couldn't do that. I knew I had to do something different. So I had to think of different ways I could play those rhythms. So he says, I kind of started playing drum fills between the hi-hat and the snare drum and the bass drum. Instead of playing them around the toms, I'd play them syncopated.
Right.
And when he did that for me and he played it on the toms and he played it, was like, no wonder it feels so good. I'm just hearing a drummer playing like fills all day long through all the records. Anyways, but that's, that gets us into the other area of producing, because as you grew and you started doing more production, how much for the young students out there is it important for them to not only expand their horizons, but understand all ins or aspects of the music business as they sit on that drum chair?
Well, the more you know, the better you play, and especially about, I think as a drummer, you're in a very privileged position because you know how the building blocks of a band sit together. You know what the bass player needs to play, the guitarist needs to play. You pick up the horn figures. You kind of set the vocalist up. You change gear to go into the chorus. You downshift to get back into the verse. So you're very, very, you're across kind of everything as a drummer, and those are the building blocks. So that's, for me, that was very good to take me into production, because you have a kind of great knowledge of how to actually set each piece of the band up. And then in return, learning how to produce people and having to deconstruct songs and reconstruct them to make them work and find the heartbeat of what it was that made them work and hopefully get a hit out of those. Less is more most of the time, as we know. And then transferring that back into the kit made me a much better player, much more sensitive to actually playing the song rather than playing the drum kit,
Boy, I almost got to have you say that all over again, because what you just said within that last 30 seconds, rewind it, because there's more than a lesson right there. Less is more. Difficult, easy that you say that. It's so easy, but so hard to learn.
But the thing is the less input, the more they hear. It's like a conversation. If we speak together, you and I, you using a very, very fancy vocabulary, it's very hard to decode for you, I, and the listener. We speak in simple, plain terms. We all agree with what's happening. And music is a handshake, and it's an agreement about what's happening and how we want to present it to other people.
Beautiful. Beautifully said. Thinking back to something else Zig said, lots of times he's not often not playing on 2 and 4. It's the absence of it that makes it so loud.
Well, yeah, because the rest of the band have that impetus. That's the mad thing about Jigaboo. It's like, there is no backbeat. There's this other stuff. And everyone else has got the weight, you know. And it's a marvelous approach.
So,
to drumming.
Expanding your horizon, I got to go over that again with you. The idea of less is more. The more you know about what the band is doing, because a lot of the young drummers growing up who are just copying other drummers, they miss the experience of the conversation.
Well, that's it. If you're copying someone else, you're just committing a task. You know, if you're copying someone else, I'm just taking this off of you and I'm reading that. That's not good. I need to listen, and from that input, I need to make a response up, which is according to the input. And that's what shapes your playing. Not copying. It's all about listening. And if someone else is talking, don't talk over them. Less is more. Listen before you talk back. You know, and that's in every instrument, especially drumming, because we have an instrument which can be terribly intrusive, shall we say, right? But yeah, so it's that thing is.
As a percussionist going wild from time to time, you can say that, right?
Well, yeah, that's when they're not singing,
right?
Yeah, but it's like the great thing that Ringo said, and he's obviously he's a huge favourite of mine, Ringo. Such a musical drummer, and all the fills just seem to be in the right place, and the best drum fills ever. And when asked about it, he said, "How do you get all those great fills, Ringo?" He said, "I wait till those other two blokes at the front stop singing." But it's the same. It's a different wording, but it's the same approach. You know, less is more. Someone else stop talking, then you talk, then everyone gets heard.
Gaining that experience. That's one of the things we try and do on Drum Channel.
That's a long journey, that one.
Yeah, we kind of separate learning into how you play, which is physically how you use your body so you don't hurt yourself, and then what you play, which is a million things you can see from everybody else, and then the kind of the secret ingredient is why you do it. And
well, I think the secret ingredient is how you listen.
Yeah, that's it.
That's key to everything. How you listen, how you interpret, how you process it, and what you want to say in response. Listening is key, and how intently you listen. What do you listen to? And it's nothing to do with that bit down the middle. It's to do with that whole thing around the edges. And me and Steve Froney have had many good talks about it. And I remember when I was a kid, he said to me, he gave me some advice. I was a young man, Steve. He said to me, he said, "It's like this, kid." He said, "If the guy's angry, get the lyrics of the song, read them. If he's angry, play angry drums, right? If it's a love song, play love drums. Just find out what the intention of the writer is, and play according to what emotion he wants to commit to the song. It's not, it's no good him pouring his heart out and you playing like a steam train down the back of him. That's not going to work."
No, I recently interviewed Hal Blaine.
Oh, right.
And we talked about, what were you thinking about? What was your experiences when you went into the studio? And he just said exactly what you're talking about. He said, "A song is a story."
Yeah.
And I have to hear. Emotionally, he said just what you're saying, which I think is interesting for young drummers to understand, because you think you're back there and you're playing all these beats that you recognize, but if it seems like it's an aggressive story, I'll play it one way. If it's a love story, I'll kind of play another way.
And Hal being one of the great masters of that, And I think also it's that thing to encompass as a young drummer. You do have to appreciate and conceptualize this is an accompanying instrument. It's not a lead instrument. It's an accompanying ensemble instrument to be played in conjunction with everyone else. It's like being the goalkeeper. You stop all the goals from going in, you pass it gently to the backs, they put it up there, and you give it to the centre forward, and they're the singer, and they put it in the goal. Because the people are listening to them, and you're accompanying, and that's the job. There are different situations, sure, where you're in a virtuoso situation and jazz situation, you've got to stretch and you've got to be a lead player. That's a very different animal. But for pretty much what we all do as kind of contemporary popular drummers, we're accompanists. And it's really important that you play with that in your head. You're part of the big thing.
And if you can learn that at an early age, that's like that can save you going through a lot of auditions where you learn it the hard way.
The thing is, if you don't, you certainly will have it.
Yeah, that's my point.
As I have.
As every drummer in the world has, right.
We all have. It's like, it will save you a lot of heartache. Ultimately make you a much better musician,
Yeah. I think all young drummers have to go through a little bit of the I got to get it out chop stage, and then you do learn. But then you have your own band, and you can do whatever you want in that. But when you're working another gig with somebody else, it's the conversation.
It's even in your own band, it's still a conversation.
Sure,
you've got to. It's a symbiotic relationship, and you all have agreement to play the same thing and not stand on each other. Move forward as a team, one piece.
You've played in a lot of different musical environments. I kind of would juxtapose Pink Floyd and Mike and the Mechanics. It's like musically a different.
They're kind of still kind of reasonably similar. They're kind of white rock British.
Okay.
So there's a certain amount of. The clock is not unsimilar in those bands
because of the British clock.
It's a British thing. It's a British thing, and these are all kind of 70s rock acts. So there's a certain umbrella that they're both under. Because obviously Mechanics being an extension of Genesis, so there's that kind of fusion British rock thing. But
a little more, yeah.
Yeah, then you kind of go and join Jean-Michel Jarre for. And that extreme kind of minimal electro pop, and you're at the other end of the scale there, or like I'm doing Schiller now, that which is like trip hop, real fast, some hard jungle stuff up there, And then I'll be in New Orleans in a couple of weeks playing with Tom and the Meters actually, and we're doing all
Tom being Tom Jones.
Tom Jones, sorry, and we'll be playing, and that will be like a 26-inch calfskin kick, rattly everything. So it just sounds like a bag of nails when you play it.
With Tom.
But we're going to play everything. That will be Americana and gospel, but of the 20s. Everything's from like 1920 to about 1940. That precursor before Americana and gospel and blues kind of hit and then made rock and roll. So we play all the precursor to that, and that is all about. That shaking. It's like you might as well just leave the stands in the traps in the case and shake the case. It's that type of experience, and that's extremely the other end. It's all very organic, and it's all about moving the tempo purposefully, slowing the verses down and pushing the choruses up. So it's got an organic feel about it, and it's that lovely thing where if anyone in the band starts playing square, then you start playing more swung. And if they start swinging, then you get squarer. So you get the rock and roll thing. So there's always a juxtaposition in the band where half of the band are square and half the band are swung at all times.
Explain a little more so everybody understands square and swung.
Well, just a straight eighth note.
Right.
So one is, it's from a straight craver, that the second that would be 68% of the original beat. So you get that kind of swing feel, but having those 2 meters in the band, it's like as a second line meter, they knit together, but they don't actually ever stay in time. They don't marry, they knit. So it's a loose knit and it holds together. It's not like if you're playing real square, everyone that does that and that interlocks. That's a very stiff, that's a certain thing. But it's all about rock and roll, and it's like a ship in a very, very big storm, and it never sinks and it always carries on, but it's always doing this, and it never loses its course, but it does that, and that's so organic, and that is essentially what that whole genre is about, and it has to be push and pull, sink and swim, all in, all out, and occasionally it drops to pieces, and then there's the beauty in the dropping to pieces and recovering back in some kind of glorious way, and then the ship keeps on moving. You
bail out the water and things work out.
Yeah, lads, water over the side, but we're good. On we go, But that's part of music as well. Is that lovely thing? Is making mistakes, because so many great things come out of mistakes. Things that you didn't mean to play, and also constantly going for it and not being reserved that, oh, I played that last night, I'll play that again. No way. Every night different, playing something different. Yeah, take the chance. And sure, you're gonna crash and burn. Nature of living, right? But out of that, sometimes, of course, the serendipity of those mad accidents happen. You go, check that out, and something great happens, and then you evolve as a band, and the audience feel that too.
Sure.
You know, and I think it's a big lesson that not to be scared of that. I think a big part of embracing that it does go wrong. It's just about how well you recover is a big lesson. You know.
And of course, one of the lessons we've talked about here on Drum Channel before is if you do make a mistake, do it again right away, and then they're going to think you probably were doing it on purpose.
Well, yeah, two mistakes.
The ancient trick, right?
Yeah, it's the old adage, isn't it? You play it twice, it's meant to be.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how bad it was.
But having the ability, I think having what we would call the facility to play the drums, then that allows you to create and try and stretch and do something. I mean, I think of all the greatest drummers in the world who some of their best moments are when they try it and it works.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't, either way.
Or some of the great things when they've stacked it and got out of it, you think, God, that's even better.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah, and I think also that thing of learning a craft so well and being so well prepared is when those moments come, you do have the confidence to drop your shoulders and relax and get out of it elegantly, rather than go, deer in the headlights, don't know what's coming, sounds like a train crash, everyone's dead.
And you're not alone if you make them. You're in having a conversation with somebody, so you both need to get back on track.
Well, that thing is, I went back to before, everyone's got their ears opening. Everyone's got their ears open, they will listen, everyone will adjust to you. Even if you go, blah, blah, and stop, everyone adjusts. I'm going to do it and blah it in. Because everyone's playing with confidence, they listen. It just sounds like a nice interlude rather than a mistake,
I love the boat rolling analogy, because to me that was always the feel of kind of the British rock when it came from Ringo's hi-hat, right, the swishy thing right to left, just the
Beatles are like, it's just like this big warm thing that moves.
No question.
Well, it's that thing, if in life I think as human beings, if you want comfort, right, someone, I don't want that, I want someone going, hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
And we all do. And music is very much that, it's a very emotive, physical response, that is, in situations that's great, but other situations, hey, how you doing? Great,
Drum geek question, did you start out match grip?
Yeah.
So from the beginning?
Yeah. From
percussion, and then just took it onto the drum set?
Yeah, because as I say, because Conga was my first thing, so that kind of equal linear approach, that made sense. Yeah. So when I picked, well, they do that, so these do this. It was just that simple for me. I've always really, really secretly wanted to play orthodox because I think it looks so much cooler. And it's so much gentler as well. All the grace notes are really lovely.
Love the subtlety, but
yeah, it's a lovely subtlety. But I'm stuck with that.
You can get it both for sure.
It's worked long enough. So
I'll say it worked very well. By the way, it's funny to hear you say.
Excuse my cold.
No problem. Funny to hear you say. I think we're probably 50 years later, and Tom Jones wants a 26-inch bass drum, which has a little bit to do with my backline story here. So it was. I'm guessing I was 22, 60 in the late 60s, working with a show band in Las Vegas, Don Palmer and Cindy Lane. We were in a lounge. Back in those days, they had the lounge. This was a little before your time. They had the lounges that were going music 24 hours a day, and then they had the big rooms, which is where Tom was playing. And I was with the show band, Don Palmer and Cindy Lane. And I think I was just having lunch in the afternoon and talking to some other drummer friends, and they're saying they're auditioning in the big room for Tom Jones is looking for a new drummer. So I thought, oh, well, that's kind of cool. He said, well, you could go in and do it. Well, I'm not looking for the gig because I'm doing this, but I thought it would be an interesting experience to do that. So I'm waiting back there. Garibaldi, I forget the name of the drummer who was his drummer at that time, but for some reason they were looking for another drummer. And so the thing was, look, he likes the bass drum really loud. This was like the hint I could get before I would go. So you have to, I'm thinking, okay. So I go out there and we play like 2 tunes, and I'm like overplaying where I would normally play the bass drum. Like I'm really, laying into it. And afterwards, they go through the whole cattle call, and somebody else is coming back to re-audition the next day. And I talked to the MD because I see him there. He said, "Yeah, it went well, but your bass drum wasn't loud enough." And I'm thinking, I couldn't have played it any louder.
I can confirm that for you.
Okay, here we are.
As you know, Don, I'm not shy around the bass drum area.
Well, a 26 is a pretty good shot.
I hit hard.
Oh my gosh, you got it.
Just from playing as a rock drummer, so there's always a lot of force there. And Jonesy is not happy until when you see the hair move, that's about the right force. If he's 10 feet away from you, you hit his hair moves, you're just about the right kick level. Oh yeah, he likes plenty of...
Still a true story as of today.
It's a very true story. He likes plenty of input.
That was funny as the world goes around. Winding up here, things that you would have to say for young drummers out there who are in college, they're looking at taking it to the next level, or they're in high school, they're a young kid, and wondering, like, what would my career path be? The chance you're going to get with the Beatles or the Stones or Pink Floyd or these bands, or that it's not like the old days. So to make a living at it, what would you suggest?
Well, it's not like the old days. It's a very different industry. I mean, I think the opportunities of those big bands are, as you say, are gone. But there's a lot of other great opportunities because of the way we consume music, the way the mediums that we have, YouTube, kind of Spotify. There's a lot more music being made. So there are a lot of other opportunities, even smaller ones. So I think there's still a lot out there if you're prepared to look and chase it. I think there's a lot out there for everyone. I think the big thing I'd like to go back to again is learn to listen, because that, no matter what you're going to do, whatever job at whatever level, you've got to listen well in order to give back what the artist is asking for, and that's the ultimate goal. Is the listening thing will solve 90% of all problems you've ever had. The more you listen, the better you get, more gigs you get.
We recently did a round table. Abe Laboriel Sr., bass player, was in the round table, and a similar subject came up, and he said, what musicians are is professional listeners. That's our job. That's our job title. And I encourage you to listen to everything that Gary's done, because you're going to hear not only, I would say, a nice swinging feel through almost everything you do, because that just, it has that, I don't know how much jazz you had traditionally in your background.
Oh no, appalling. Jazz is not my...
But
I mean, I love it.
But it swings. What you do swings.
Yeah.
So it's
I love it. I just can't play
it. You're there whether you know it or not. So I can't thank you enough for spending time. And I know you're taking off from here, and you got a few.
Well, I'm going to go have a look at my lovely.
We'll see what we got cooking in the back room.
I'm going to look at my purple sparkle beauty.
See what stew's going on.
Oh, it's interesting because you guys never make concert tom-toms, and they're making. It's the new thing. It's the emergence across Europe is going to be.
It's coming back. So Al Blaine is back in style again.
But I mean, John and I, we've obviously banged heads over the years about it, obviously. Oh. But they're a different animal, and they have their place, and they make a great noise. They really do.
Oh, no question.
In a different way.
Yeah, no question.
And I love it, and I just it's time to go. It's time to lead that charge.
Let's hear what happens there.
Yeah, well, I'm going to do the Schiller thing.
Where can they get some of the tracks of? Is that?
I'll send you some.
Okay. Also, are they online? People watching can.
Yeah, I'll have to have a look where they are. I can't quite remember, but I can send you some links and you can post those.
Okay, right. Maybe. We'll do that for sure.
But also, that's interesting. I'm going to be using a lot of it's like concert tom-toms, but. I recently just I was at Fisher Lane Farm, the Genesis studio, and I had all Phil's drums out. So I resampled all of Phil's tom-toms.
Whoa.
And the kick and snares, because we're all in the Genesis camp, so we all record in that room, the big naughty stone room. Very naughty. But with the DW kit, we're doing the Schiller stuff. When I'm playing like big drums on that, I've sampled all the rooms, so instead of having contact bugs, I've got microphone audio, and that re-triggers all the rooms from the farm, but not the drums. So the drums come through the PA and they hit, but the actual room that the drum's going to go into, that's re-triggered.
Whoa.
So all the drums are as they are live, but you'll just get the reflection of all the rooms from the different studios. So I've done it and recorded just the rooms in all the different studios.
And what is this on? This is on the new
on the new Schiller record, on the new Schiller thing,
which is out now.
Well, no, we're just building the drum kit for it now.
Okay.
I've just recorded the new record.
Okay.
So kind of come early Feb, that will be out, and I'll send you the links to that. And I said to John I was going to do a big video and do the whole run round of how it's all been sampled, triggered with the new DW.
Oh, the way you
pads.
just explained it, I've never heard of that in my life.
It's great because basically you get the attack envelope, and that's the drum. You want that. That's the drum speaking, and then people put samples on drums. It's like, why? Then you've got two drums and they don't agree with each other. So you got that to start with, and two different pitches, two things. It doesn't work. But so what I'm doing is I'm using sampling my own drums, but just using the room that drum creates, and that will be the sample. So I've got the drum, and it's just like putting the ambient mics up in the studio, but live. So then I'm recreating the room sizes from that drum, but actually triggered from the initial drum hit that's made the ambience. So it's all cognitive with each drum.
Whoa.
And then so when you get like, okay, my hair just fell off. But doing that live, because it doesn't really happen live for people.
Sure.
So I'm going to really explore that avenue quite hard. And that's a lot to do with the producing thing.
No question. You thought Gary was a great drummer and a great percussionist. Well, there's many hats to Gary Wallis, I'll tell you. This is phenomenal, yeah. Congratulations on not only your lifetime of success, but all that you've brought to all the young drummers and the great experiences I've had hearing you play through the years, too. I've loved it.
Too kind. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your continued support and making me sound marvellous.
We'll see you again.
All right. Take care, guys. See you.